and welcome to Showcase, TRT World's daily arts and culture program coming to you from Istanbul. Today we take a detailed look at an art form that cannot be confined to galleries or museums. And unlike a painting, it can't be collected, possessed or turned into a trophy. You don't need a ticket to see it, and there are no hours of operation. Istanbul's streets are a showcase for graffiti artists and muralists. They provide some colour and imagination to our day-to-day lives in the city. Talented street artist Leo Lunatic takes us through his step-by-step process of creating a mural. And all he needs is a few bottles of spray paint and a blank wall. Graffiti and mural artists with big imaginations transform boring concrete walls into colossal canvases. Their pieces vary from scribbled writings to abstract paintings.
Merhaba, ben Mr. Hood.
I'm Mr. Hure. I was born in Sirte in 1989. I studied business at Karadeniz Technical University, and I've been interested in graffiti since 1999.
I was born in 1985 in Istanbul. My name is Muhammed Emin Turkmen, but I'm known as Med on the streets.
Kişinin ismini gittiği her yere...
It's a form of art that allows you to write your name everywhere. It's an ego war between graffiti artists to show who painted more.
For me, graffiti is Met because it created Met and it directed my life. It gave me qualification and shaped my life. I met people that I would never have had the chance to meet.
Başlarda grafitiyi tamamen zevk için ve hobi olarak yapıyordum.
At the beginning, I was painting street walls as a hobby and painting illegally. I've been making money from graffiti for the last 4 years. I'm painting for prestigious brands and organisations. I worked as an accountant for 7 years. I was painting at night and going to my accounting job during the day, doing paperwork with my painted hands. But I had to make a choice between graffiti and working in a corporate company, and I chose graffiti.
Grafiti iş olarak yapılacak bir şey değil.
Graffiti is not a thing to be done as a job. I started graffiti when I was 13, and a boy at that age is not concerned about his future career. Then graffiti was admired by many people over time. Consequently, demands increased, and it became a job, and now I can make a living out of it.
Polisten dayak yedim, özel güvenlikten dayak
I was beaten up by police, security guards, and even by civilians many times. But if someone painted your wall, you could get angry and beat them up too.
Tren boyadık ve
Once we painted a train car. Then we climbed the bridge to photograph the painting. At that moment, the police noticed us and started running towards us. We tried to run away, but were severely beaten.
okuduğum ortaokulun duvarınaydı.
Me and my friends painted my middle school's wall. Next day, everybody at school was talking about the graffiti. They didn't know who had done it, but they were basically talking about me. And that made me happy.
Tüm dünya genelinde bir kaos, bir savaş.
There's so much chaos everywhere in the world today. And as a reaction, I started writing this slogan on walls. Don't make war, make art.
biz gri bir şehirde yaşıyoruz.
We live in a gray city. Graffiti halts this grayness. I believe graffiti adds value and color to Istanbul. We are the colors of the colorless gray city.
To most, it's public art, but to some, it's vandalism. Graffiti becomes a legal concern when it's done without permission. Although artists are often supported and given the green light for their work, some still choose to pursue it illegally and in the dark.
This logo can be spotted in almost every district of sprawling Istanbul. A group of men who stroll the streets late at night leave their mark on doors, walls, abandoned houses, and train cars.
Bizim grubumuzda DSK.
Our group is called DSK. It stands for Dark Side Kids. We don't paint to vandalize. We don't damage places intentionally. We just want to add color to the city. Nowadays, there are a lot of billboard ads that are forced on society. We don't want to see these.
Dayatılıyor zorla. Gözümüze sokuluyor.
This hobby comes with the risk of arrest, fines, and even imprisonment. But that doesn't stop graffitists.
Yurt dışında yakalanıp hapse girdiğim oldu.
I was jailed in Hamburg and I paid a fine. Other than that, we had security guards chase us and shoot after us. We were sometimes caught and beaten, but this is all part of the whole experience. The more the risk, the more the thrill.
Tadı tuzu yani.
Most of us travel to discover new places, but the graffitists travel just to leave their mark.
Duvarda DSK görünce hoşuma gidiyor.
Seeing my name everywhere makes me happy. I want to be everywhere. It may sound egotistical, but I like it.
Ben böyle seviyorum.
Many of these graffitists hold 9-to-5 office jobs during the day. Some may well be your financial advisor at the bank or the customer service agent at the grocery store. But when night falls, they color the back alleys of your city.
For the last 5 years, Kadıköy has welcomed local and international artists onto their streets for the annual Muralist Festival. They're invited to let their imagination run wild and to make their mark on the area's walls. Showcase's Miranda Ati has more.
Three murals. They're eye-catching, interpretive, and unusual. These murals adorn the walls of Kadıköy Municipality, an official building in the heart of this Istanbul district. They were first painted as part of the Muralist Art Festival. But there's no doubt they're here to stay. I'm meeting the municipality's head of social media and coordinator of the festival, Ulaş Yilmaz, to find out more.
We want to combine with the new artistic view, street art, and all this lifestyle of Kadıköy. To have chance to provide this artist or official buildings, it was a kind of revolutionary approach. Especially in Turkey, official buildings are so grey, so obscure. It's a kind of negative energy it gives. But by this mural in our municipality and in the street, we want to provide more positive energy.
Take a walk down any street in Kadıköy, and you'll probably encounter some street art. The key is how it blends into the surroundings.
We want to see art in the street. We want to reach people, not isolated area. Of course, there are galleries or we have galleries, art galleries, but in the street we can reach more people. We can reach the aunt that living in this building, for example. These street kids, the old people can reach and criticize and interpret our arts. By this reason, we want to see art in the street.
The artists are a mix. Some are local, while others have come from destinations as diverse as Argentina, Germany, Chile and Kazakhstan. The Muralist Festival began in 2012. Now there are more than 20 murals in various locations in this municipality, and with the addition of 5 new paintings in this year's festival, Kadıköy will soon be home to 26 pieces of official street art. The Muralist Festival brings creativity to the streets. It blends the anarchic with the traditional, and it adds a little colour to local, everyday life. Miranda Ati, TRT World, Istanbul.
Gamze Yalçın is one of the muralists that has been adding colour to the streets of Istanbul. Let's take a look at how she decorates the streets.
She expressed herself on walls in Istanbul and many other cities. Inspired by both nature and animals, Turkish muralist Gamze Yalçın expresses herself through her colourful combinations of images.
So painting in different countries is very important for street artists because we feel more freedom, we feel more creative. That mobility is very important for us.
But Gamze doesn't just paint for fun. Her murals also carry social messages, such as the 4 monkeys on a wall in Istanbul.
The painting behind me that I paint last winter in the cold weather, I try to express, like, we are always talking about 3 monkeys. Actually, I'm trying to see the 4th monkeys. We are covering our heart, and that is blocking us. It's blocking our emotions and it's blocking our dreams for the future. So I try to express that feeling.
Gamze uses the community's wall in her art, but she tries to give back more than just her murals.
Last year I painted like for four different hospitals in children who lives there with a foundation, and also another project for like workshops with children, painting with them. And because it's the biggest feature, I think, that if we teach art, if we show art how it works, so then they are getting more and more how we can bring good things to this world. So that's the starting point for me, because I inspired doing murals in Philippines in the dump site when I was painting with children in trash areas with friends.
Those memories will stay with Gamze for a long time, possibly after her murals lose their colour and the walls crumble.
To give us some insight into why street art is so popular globally, we're joined in the studio by Professor Doğan Aslan, who's an artist and an academician at Istanbul Medeniyet University. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Tell us about this popular activity and the development of it and its history.
Definitely. Street art is a visual art that is that's painted on the walls, public locations. And when we look at the history, mainly these street art, graffiti became popular in the Bronx in New York around 1980s. And during these days, hip-hop culture and street arts affected each other. And then we have some photographs and video that show that there are some good examples during these days. And there are some names. Kid Haring is a famous artist who painted his beautiful drawings on the wall of Bowery mural that is in Soho. It was in Soho, and these activities became popular in these days. Although we have some examples in the 1960s and 70s, but these examples were a little bit few. And especially 80s and 90s, street art became very popular. And when we look at again this other part of the world in terms of Europe, for example, the Berlin was also the main center of this street art. The 80s, as far as I remember, the 1980s, West and East Berlin Wall, and it became a center of graffiti and street art. And there were some good examples around these times. Again, around these 90s in London, and Banksy's works in Bristol, again,
yes.
Very popular, and he became an international graffiti artist. And these are what I remember in terms of when we look at in the history of street art and graffiti.
Mm-hmm. Professor Aslan, how and why did people first start expressing themselves on the streets and on the walls?
That's a great question. I think when we look at the natural location, natural concept of this street art, if you have an aspiring and a young artist and you want to show your work, right, and you want to go to museum and gallery, but the museum and galleries they work with the money, so they work with the established artists. So if you are young and if you're looking for such a place, I think the street is the perfect place to show their feelings and minds and ideas. So that is, I think, one of the good reason and the best reason for the young people to show their works on the street. And having your work on the street, on the wall, is also the democratic way to expose your work to all the people on the street. But if you have the work, you're in a gallery and a museum, is limited. And that's why I think that people like to show their work on the wall, on the street. And if you go to New York or Paris, Istanbul, and it's a more, it's a general public that you can see, and which is, I think, much better in terms of reaching the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do like that. That's it. It makes it democratic for artists, for everybody. Istanbul is like a, artwork to walk through. Anyway, tell us about this city's relationship with art? Just briefly.
Definitely. I think it's 15 years or 20 years ago when I was in Istanbul before moving to Europe. There wasn't that much graffiti or street art. But after moving from New York to Istanbul 3 years ago, I was shocked that there were a lot of nice, beautiful images in many parts of Istanbul, especially in the old city, Istiklal Street and the Tunel and the Shishane and Karaköy has a lot of nice sign of artists from national and international artworks. And also the Asian side, Kadıköy and Mora, you can see the beautiful artworks, graffiti from again different background artists. So the Istanbul is is a unique place historically and geographically. So many young artists, they want to show their work to express their feelings and their ideas on the walls.
Well, these artworks can actually become symbols of cities these days and even tourist destinations. And this is a global phenomenon. Are there any other cities that you find especially inspiring for works?
Definitely. I mean, I have been in many cities from Cuba, Havana to Montreal, from New York to Sydney, and even in Africa and Japan. So whenever I go to this city, first things that I do is to go to the street and look at the walls, because wall is the real and raw organic ideas and concept of the artist. And definitely I go to the museum and galleries, but to me the street and the picture images, or whatever you call logos and all kind of visual images and type and lettering is to me, the art to me is an expression of those people, and these are to me is very powerful, and that's why I think in the last 10 years this graffiti or street art became a very big impact in many countries and cities.
Definitely. Well, Professor Arslan, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Street art is not just limited to graffiti and murals. It can encompass multiple disciplines. Take the work of Eda Soylu. She started a project in 2013 that combines sculpture with installation art to beautify abandoned houses and bare walls in Istanbul's Balat district.
Eda Soylu has had her art displayed in galleries from Europe to America, but she decided to take her work to a much bigger space, the streets.
I exhibited the wallpaper both in a gallery in Berlin and at the Contemporary Istanbul Art Fair. The work touched people without people having the luxury to touch the work. It is one thing to be sure that once the exhibition is over, the installation will be deinstalled safely, packed safely, put away safely. It is another thing to not be sure if the installation will survive the night upon installing it on the streets.
Flowers buried in concrete illustrate the contrasts in our lives.
In embedding flowers in concrete, three actions occur. Killing, housing, preserving. Flowers placed in concrete don't die right away. Their death is observable. They grow weak as time passes, as you can see, but this way of killing helps them preserve their color. On one hand, their lives are taken away. On the other hand, they're given immortality as a result of being housed permanently.
After 2 years, the flowers lose their color and start to decay. But Eda has succeeded in making art a part of daily life.
People actually can destroy this work just with a spatula or with a hammer, but they choose not to. People choose not to destroy it.
Many people embrace street art. It's an opportunity to bring the community together.
People that are living here not only allowed me to come here and let me use their streets, use their walls for me to install my work, but also embrace the work to a point where they don't see the work anymore. It has become part of their lives. The work has touched them to a point that they embrace it, they accept it, and they move on. And it's there.
The streets are more colorful because of artists like Eda, and by the response of the average citizen, the streets are hungry for more.
That's it on Showcase from TRT World Istanbul. We'll be back soon with more from the world of arts and culture. I'm Özlem Işiten. Thank you for joining us, and bye for now.